Hey, what's up, guys? Ken here from the Retro Toy Escapades channel. If you're new here and enjoying the content, do take a moment to subscribe so that I can keep bringing you more pop culture commentary that you didn't ask for. Hey, so the big news this week is that Super 7 is picking up where Mattel left off and continuing the Thundercats Classics line. And once again, we're treated to fantastic news images of wonderful toys featuring characters from our childhood that we will only get to own by paying tons of cash for them. Because, yes, these will only be available at some online store or at a remote brick and mortar outlet that most people will never get to visit in their lifetime. And oh, especially on eBay, where if you thought that online store prices are expensive, some random toy hoarder will show you that you haven't seen just how truly expensive it can get. And speaking of expensive, Big Bad Toy Store currently has these for sale in a set comprising of Lion-O, Decade Mumra, Pantro, and Jackalman for something like $180. That works out to about 45 bucks per figure. Guys, I don't know. Is it just me or are these some of the highest priced basic figures for something of this scale in since ever? Now granted that these are Ultimates versions, and you know how when you see the word Ultimate attached to a figure, it means that you get a ton of accessories together with the set. Well, that's what's happening here. There's a ton of accessories, so you have to pay more, whether you like it or not. Now, hey, my ultimate dream is for these toys to someday be at retail, at prices that everyone can afford. I mean, look, man, I can think of a few hardcore Thundercat fans that just can't wait to step into the store, see these toys on shelves, and just go, ho! I mean, just go, ho! But you can't, and you probably never will again. Now, this whole thing is just frustrating. I mean, somehow the Thundercats franchise has been suffering from this reincarnation nonsense since freaking 2002. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but if you're a Thundercats fan, a pop culture fan, then you damn well better. But somewhere in 2002, there was this huge renaissance in the return of classic pop culture properties from the 1980s. And it all started with the comics. So what happened is that somewhere towards the tail end of 2001, Devil's Due Comics, now defunct, but back then, they were a big deal. But they put out a G.I. Joe comic that featured the return of all the classic heroes that you remembered from when you were a kid. Not G.I. Joe Extreme or anything like that, but the G.I. Joe. Now the book sold out the door, and a few months later, Dreamwave Productions puts out their G1 Transformers comic. That's right, with the G1 Transformers and not freaking Beast Wars or animals and machines together, but the G1 robots from Cybertron. Now everything was selling out at this point. And that opened the door for Image Comics to bring back the vintage Masters of the Universe. And before you know it, Wildstorm is debuting their Thundercats comic book. I'm telling you, never before was there a time since the 1980s that there was so much simultaneous retro toy excitement in comic books. But was it gonna last? Of course not! The creative teams that were working on these books could not maintain the consistency and quality, and some of them went through many incarnations before being cancelled. Now, the G.I. Joe and Transformers comics are still being published today, but at nowhere near the sales levels of what they used to do. But that Thundercats comic that came out, man, if you read any of those early issues from Wildstorm, it was like the cartoon itself brought to life on the comic book page. The storylines captured the gist of the classic cartoon themes, even expanded on it. But where the series really shined was the art by Ed McGuinness. Now, if you're a fan, do yourself a favor and go back and check these books out. So anyway, a few short years later, by the time 2005 rolls around, the Thundercats comics were mostly all cancelled. Now, without a supporting toy line or cartoon, there would have been no way to sustain interest. Then, in 2011 comes this brand new animated Thundercats cartoon where everyone gets a very modern anime style update. Yes, Chitara is still hot, but I'll be the first to admit that I hated the designs at first. But damn, hot damn, the cartoon won me over. Now, to this day, I'll swear that Thundercats cartoon from 2011 was possibly the best 80s era pop culture reboot of all time in terms of storytelling and ambition. And this was the case of the cartoon quality surpassing that of the tie-in toy products, which were mostly, frankly, pretty crappy and a missed opportunity. Then in 2011 comes this brand new animated Thundercats cartoon where everyone gets a very modern anime style update. Yes, Chitara is still hot, but I'll be the first to admit that I hated the designs at first. But damn, hot damn, the cartoon won me over. Now to this day, I'll swear that Thundercats cartoon from 2011 was possibly the best 80s era pop culture reboot of all time in terms of storytelling and ambition. And this was the case of the cartoon quality surpassing that of the tie-in toy products, which were mostly, frankly, pretty crappy and a missed opportunity. But then, Bandai Toys goes out of their way to please the hardcore fan community by putting out the best 8-inch scale versions of classic Lion-O and Tigra ever produced up to that point. But guess what? Even these end up languishing on shelves, and the line gets cancelled after just 2 figures. Now what went wrong? These were 2 of the highest quality Thundercats action figures up to that point, at retail and at regular retail prices. But hardly anyone bought them. Now I can tell you that a whole litter of Lion-O figures was still on shelves where I live 2 years after they came out. So hey, what went wrong? The truth is, guys, as much as many would like to believe otherwise, Thundercats just doesn't seem to have the same sort of everlasting fan following that is willing to vote with their dollars. Now, I'm a fan. I want Thundercats toys at retail. There are many others I know who want the same thing. We want good quality Thundercats toys that don't cost a quarter of what Mattel is charging for the new Snake Mountain playset. But there's not enough of us. There's many that say that they're fans. You know, when something like Thundercats Raw gets announced, they get into their mutant fist pounder machines and crack the message boards talking about how these reboots ruined their childhood. But when the opportunity to purchase these toys at affordable prices presented itself, many of them just walked by them at toy stores and said, hey, I remember that, that's cool, and just walked on by. So these toys end up being announced again every few years, produced in smaller quantities and at higher prices, and for the truly loyal faithful who have no choice but to pony up for them. Now, a lot of people say that they are Thundercats fans, but if you were to ask me, they just liked the cartoon and thought that Chitara was hot. The same amount of people can't keep the franchise alive. Look, guys, toy companies in the 80s got these marketed to kids, even with so many other equally cool toy lines on shelves. I know kids these days have tons of distractions, but toys are still a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, some creative team out there can make the Thundercats visually recognizable and demanded by a whole new generation. Somebody has to do it. So anyway, guys, that's the video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Let me know how much of a die-hard Thundercats fan you are. I still have the original Thunder Tank with the rubber tank treads attached. And do show your support by subscribing to the channel. I need all the help that you can spare to keep putting out these videos and to stop Mumra. Thank you, and I'll catch you guys again real soon.